Yeah, there's no player at any sport at any level that likes artificial turf. The older you get, the worse it is on your body and the worse it makes you feel. You'll see more guys now that it's getting colder and teams will have to practice indoors that won't practice or will be limited in practice because of how bad it makes their body feel.
And welcome to this week's edition of the 941 SportsZone podcast. I'm John Mussone here with my special guest, Mr. Trey Burton. And Trey, we get to see each other a lot during football season, mostly with you sitting next to me doing our live streams for the Venice High School football games. But nice to see you here on the podcast. We got a few things we're going to discuss, things a little close to our heart, let's just say this week.
Maybe a little too close to our hearts, bro.
Yes, a little too close, no doubt. Before we get started, though, I wanted to go ahead and recap a little bit of what we did last week with Rich Spedalari. Rich, the WENG Sports Director. And we talked a little bit of Trey, a little bit of local sports, a little high school, local stuff. He's got a Charlotte County, kind of thing with himself. He works with the Lemon Bay program as well. And really talked about how some of the local programs looking to improve did make some improvements this past year. Nice to see that, and how the area itself, it has got quite a few playoff level teams that are going to be competing in the state championship competition here soon. So it was good talk with Rich, and he's always a good guy to get a lot of enlightenment from an area sports guy.
How's Lemon Bay looking this year?
Good. They beat Booker last week to win the district. And
no way.
Wow. Yeah, and everybody had, and me included, I had Booker as a 9-1 team, very talented, good coach, but reading the little snippets and not actually ever talking to Coach Littles after early in the season, it seemed like maybe just wasn't sort of things that didn't gel, maybe a little undisciplined, that kind of thing. So, but even with that, Lemon Bay is the exact opposite of that. They are the disciplined, well put together team. Hard running team, had almost 300 yards rushing that game. So won the district, and they'll go into the playoffs. I suspect hoping to go a little farther than last year, which was, I think, at the first round out. They had a bye, and then they got the next round they were out. So hopefully they can get a little further. Hope everybody in the area outside of the teams that we're going to face at Venice, they all do well, that kind of thing. So
yeah, it's always good. It's always good. I mean, every year that I remember, ever since I played, there's always been 2 or 3 teams that have made it to the playoffs, and second and third round, and some of them win championships or playing the championships. So yeah, it's always fun to root for those guys, at lower levels and higher levels.
So with that, we're actually going to tack into our first conversation on a local level. Is basically high school football season is almost over. One more week in the season, regular season, and you still got a lot of things that are going to shake itself out. I don't know if you've ever been in the room when they're trying to figure out who they're going to play round one. I'm talking about our Venice coaching staff in particular. It is impossible to really try to figure it out because there's so many different layers to it. You have to worry about every team or look at every team that you've played to that point to see if they're winning and losing, and how that little bit of an effect can turn the seedings around. Do you think that, your opinion on that, do you think that it's just the times, the way things are, that computers are involved in all these different sort of decisions, or is it to go back to the old way where it's the district winner and district runner up, and everybody gets their guys in that way and off and running from there?
Yeah, I love the old ways. I mean, obviously it's so much easier and simpler, but I do understand to a degree, and I do appreciate the newer way in the sense of you have to play better competition. You can't just, cruise your way into the playoffs. And at least that's how I think it is now compared to, what it was before. It's obviously way more complicated, but it puts a little bit more of an emphasis on teams actually playing legit opponents, every single week. And not just having cupcakes, like that. So, but I did like it back in the day because a district championship meant more, I think, back in the day, in the sense of you had a guarantee.
You had to do it, right?
Yeah, you had to do that to get to the playoffs, and you had a guaranteed first round game at home, if you won the district, and those type of things. But I can't believe how much shift there is. It's every year, I feel like it's every year is a different system, a different way they're going to do things. They're going to split teams differently, and from the metro to the suburban, and the classifications and the reclass. And I understand there's some shifts, and different schools have different populations, and whatever that maybe, but geez, it's confusing, man. Every year you have to educate me on what's going on and what we need to do to get to the playoffs.
I mean, I just don't know. I mean, you hear confidence last week that, yeah, it looks like we're going to play Lakewood Ranch or somebody along those lines and as a first round opponent. But then you look and say like, well, Sarasota's real close or this person's real close. And what's it going to come down to? It's going to come down to if Booker beats Lakewood Ranch or this or that goes down and then they're in or out. And then it could be another situation where a team down south beats somebody and the district winner, well, who's already in, loses to somebody. That's how it gets turned around. We played Riverdale last year, and nobody was expecting to play Riverdale. Nobody expected it. So it is interesting. And you're right. It is about the competition, about playing a tougher schedule. Spoke to the broadcaster from IMG last week on our pregame show for the live stream, Ryan Sudol. And we were sort of saying like, one of the things that's beneficial to playing the harder schedule and maybe not being sort of penalized for that is look what happened with Venice in the last, say 7 or 8, 10 years or whatever it's been, where coach has got himself a harder schedule. And now you have, now you play IMG with the expectation that you could win the game. Obviously, that kind of thing. But if you don't, there's no penalty to it. Actually, there's a benefit to it because you're playing a nationally ranked team and there's benefit to it. So, and then what happens with that? All of a sudden you're on the map. You're the team on ESPN. And you know about that, right? You're the team on ESPN.
So
all of a sudden, boom, the kids see it. They love it. This is going on great. It just lends something to the program. And I think in talking to Ryan, he's like, yeah, you guys are legit. You guys, we think of you as our competition. We love that you want to play us locally. And that gives us, a chance to play a nationally ranked team as well. And we don't have to travel to Timbuktu to do it.
Yeah. And to add on to that, you have college coaches at every one of IMG games, multiple college coaches. So the fact that you play IMG, you could be on the border, Division I player, and you're going to have a big time Division I schools at the game, guaranteed. And so all you need to do is play well, and you have a chance to get looked at from a higher level school.
You get a situation where, let's say a skill position player playing against IMG, a guy's a 4-star, 5-star cornerback going to Oklahoma or something like that, and you get 5 really good catches on him. That's the lead in your huddle, highlight reel. That's the game that they see that, and the next thing like you're gonna get you might get a second look like who's that kid, because
everybody knows who IMG is. Everybody does.
Right, and even with the St. Thomas rivalry for the years, there was something to that as well, where we would even say, man, you know what, he belonged on that field tonight. One of our players like that's going to get him, more looks as a guy, junior or a sophomore or somebody like that. It's going to get him a look because he played equal to and up to the same par as a team that has multiple D1 guys playing.
And those games prepare you for the next level. They prepare you for that competition. You're going to be playing against the best of the best in Division I, and so being able to play against those guys in high school gives you an advantage going into college as well.
So I quote something about you a lot of times when I talk about what we're just talking about, but I'll get you actually to say what it actually was. I'm sure I've changed the wording and how it happened around, but I know that when you were recruited by Florida, I know that there was some questions as to, hey, what can we do to make Trey better? Can we work on his this or throwing or footwork or whatever? And I want to say that they had said to you that no. I mean, they said go out and play high competition, go win a championship. There was more concerning to them from that perspective, from where you're playing, as opposed to just going out there and playing nobody and having a nice 3-7 season and on to the next thing. They want those players to play at a high level and learn how to play against good competition.
Yeah, I remember. After every game, once I committed to Florida at the end of my sophomore year, after every Friday night, I get home and Urban would call me and he would say, "Did you win?" Like, he didn't say like, "What were your stats?" or that type of stuff. Like, "Did you win?" First and foremost, like they want winners. They want people who are accustomed to winning. They don't want to have to teach you how to win, those type of things. They want to, teach you on your fundamentals and footwork and all that type of stuff whenever you get there, and hand placement and everything like that, depending on your position. But they want to make sure that you care about winning first, because obviously their job is on the line if you don't win and you have a bunch of guys who don't have a winning culture. So yeah, that was the first thing every single time. Did you win? And then he would ask about the game and some of the coverages and some of the technical stuff, just to kind of see how well versed I was in football terminology and everything. And because it's funny because sometimes we'd call a route a certain thing, and then I would say what we would call it, and then he'd be like, well, what's that? Explain that concept to me, and then give me your like where's your read in cover three or versus cover two, and they just go through those types of things, and obviously that's a little bit different because that's the quarterback position. Not
Right,
every
right.
position has to deal with those type of things. But yeah, I mean, they want you to win. They want you to go to the state championship, and obviously you want to as well, because then you get more recognition and more eyes on you, and you're taping that type of stuff as well.
So actually, I'm gonna give you a transition question to lead into our next segment, which we'll be talking about Florida Gators in particular. But so when you got to Florida, let's just say there's a 5-star guy, somebody that you say, oh, okay, this guy's going to be good, but he comes from a program that maybe isn't a winning program. Maybe he doesn't have that, didn't have that culture of winning, and maybe he didn't have the football education he got maybe you got at high school. Was it noticeable? Could you tell that guy maybe didn't have the same acumen as an incoming freshman, or even going into the next year as well? Is there a difference?
Yeah, so I mean, what I would say about that is there is no 5-star once you get to college.
Right.
What I mean?
Right.
Like they don't really care what star you are, honestly. And so like it's more of like, do you have the will to win? And they're gonna test your will every morning at 5:30 in the morning, and it's gonna be cold, and you're gonna hate it, and you better be there on time, and you better be doing the right thing. And so they're gonna test your will, and if you don't have that natural will to win, or don't have a history of winning in your past, it's obviously a lot harder to wake up every single morning and compete against anybody, and anybody could be a 3-star who wants to take the 5-stars position. So yeah, you definitely could tell, no question about that. And like you know how like some people can just figure things out. Like they might have never done this, and I'm trying to teach my son this all the time. He asks me questions like, "Hey Dad, can you do this for me?" Or, "Hey Dad, how does this work?" I'm like, "Bro, figure it out." I want you figure it out and try. And if you don't get it right, I appreciate you trying to figure it out, but I'll help you eventually. Yeah, some people just don't have that.
You'll get you back inside the lines. You may wander off a certain way, but that's how it goes.
But just try to figure it out.
And the thing about
some people don't have that.
Yeah, and what you're saying too about the will to do certain things, getting up early, but that also goes to the same thing we talk about academics and everything go along with that. It's not there's a lot to be learned, and it can be very overwhelming, I'm sure, walking on if you're not prepared for it or hadn't had that acumen for it to try to learn that on the fly. It must be difficult.
I would highly doubt that any high level Division I football team has a quarterback coming in that doesn't win, or that hasn't won, or isn't competing for a state championship at whatever state they're living in, or whatever state they're playing in. I mean, I can't really think of a guy that that's a hot recruit that hasn't won or isn't winning currently, or playing really well.
Right, and I think that's why you see what you're seeing now with the ability to move about in the state of Florida with different players, and quarterbacks are going to places where they think they're going to win. And they may leave a program only because the opportunity is going to get taken away from them in some way if they don't have that ability to win those games.
For sure.
No doubt. All right, we'll take our first break of the night, Trey. We'll come back. I want to thank Douglas Jeep for being our sponsor and the home of the 941 Sports Zone, and also Truly Nolan, who are the sponsor for our What's Bugging Me segment. I will ask you now, do you have a bugging me, or do you want to let me just do my own bugging me on my own tonight? Are you up for a bugging me?
Yeah, I'll think about it during the break.
Good,
sure.
No doubt. With that, we'll take our break tonight, and we'll our first break of the night, and come back, and we'll talk a little Florida Gator football with Mr. Trey Burton back here shortly after these messages.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
And we're back here at Douglas Jeep and the 941 Sports Zone, and with Trey Burton. And Trey, you and I both were in the same spot or the same vicinity on Saturday, with the same mindset, having a good time tailgating at the Florida-Georgia game up in Jacksonville, once known as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And we can say it here because nobody's going to get too mad at us. Obviously, always a great time up there, always fun environment. It's a rivalry that can have a little bit of heat to it, but it's a rivalry that everybody knows when they get to there, you're going to commingle with each other. You're going to do whatever, and game time is game time, and then whatever happens afterwards happens afterwards. With that, one of the main points I wanted to bring up to you tonight is Florida Gator football. I said we're at this point in Florida Gator football within the Billy Napier area. Where do you think Florida is at this point as far as their progression? On target, anything you can think of how you feel they are currently?
Yeah, I think, I have more optimism this year than I did last year.
Sure.
That's for sure. In the sense of, and let me back up. That's just in the football team in general, not necessarily in Billy or his staff. Like, I've always had a ton of optimism in them, and they have my full support.
Right.
100%. They've always had that since day one. But I've had more optimism in the direction of where the team's going. I've seen a lot more positive flashes of football this year than I did previously.
Right.
And specifically, like, look at how much better we're tackling on defense compared to last year. I just think we're just missing a couple pieces. You're not going to beat the number one team in the country and by having multiple mistakes,
Right.
from coaching and playing. And so we're just missing a couple pieces. And I think, with this recruiting class coming in, there's obviously a ton of talk about it and a lot of hype about it, but there's definitely some better years on the horizon, in my opinion. And we got to take our lumps, and we are, and we just got to keep pushing forward and getting better.
So I will tell you this from a positive perspective, winning next week or this coming weekend against Arkansas. Last year, I would be very, very unsure of that. I feel confident that Florida can win or should win. It's a home game. The home field seems to be coming back a little bit, which is great. But I think that Arkansas has played below average, I would say, for them this year. And I feel very confident that Florida will win this game on Saturday and get themselves bowl eligible, which is a very important part of their progression.
No offensive coordinator for Arkansas as well. They fired him before their bye week. Bro, the swamp is alive.
Yeah.
And it is alive and well. We are a whole another animal when we're at home. And I don't think anybody wants to see us at home. I mean, look what happened in the Tennessee game. So I think, this week's obviously huge. And then we have Florida State at home this year as well. So we could be spoilers. So we definitely have an opportunity. Like you said, bowl eligible would be cool. But
there's no game left on the schedule we can't win.
I agree.
But there's the possibility that you could lose them all. That's sort of how it is. That's where you're at. A few pieces here or there. So I have a little analogy I'm going to throw at you real quick where I think where the program is right now. Okay. So I'm going to use the analogy of buying a house. Okay. Mm-hmm. So let's say you decide, or I decide to buy a house. It's a 3-2, nice neighborhood. It's a nice little white house, and it looks nice. It's well manicured, the whole deal. And you say, you know what? I'm going to buy that house. And you say to everybody, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fix that house up. I'm going to turn it into, the bomb. Pool in the back. Everything's going to look great. It's going to be fantastic. Yeah. So you say, you sound excited. You're like, this is going to be fantastic. We're going to redo this. So let's say I'm the owner of that house, and I say, here's where, wait till we see what I do first. And here's what I'm going to do. And you go out and get a pressure cleaner. You pressure clean everything down. You even pressure clean that white house nice and clean. And then you go ahead and paint that house white again. Mm-hmm. Now you can say to me, okay, but it's not the same white paint. It's better white paint, okay? And this white paint is going to hold up longer. It's going to be better. Everything's going to be great. And he says, but it took me a year and a half to get this house to be a better white house, okay? And I think it's where Florida is. They're a better white house. They were a white house at 6-6, but maybe it was not the right white paint. Now it's the same white. It's still a white house, but it's just a better white house. And we're at the point where those toys that are coming in, the DJ Langways and all these guys coming in, now they're going to show up, and they're going to be, let's say their presents, they're going to show up from the Amazon truck. How do you put them into places? What, can you make that, can that one, maybe that one prize is a decked out, beautiful sound system, audio, this, you name it, visual stuff. And you're going to turn that white house into a rock star living arrangement. I think we're still, we were a white house when he got here. We're still a white house, but maybe we're a better painted white house. Do you think that analogy kind of rings a little true?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think, one of the biggest question marks we had is, not necessarily could he do it, but like, how well is he going to recruit? We knew we could recruit, and we knew that he was good with that. So like, recruiting is kind of done. Like he's proven he can recruit. Now, how well can we develop these kids, and get them in there and get them to play fast? We obviously have the most freshmen playing and starting out of any other Division I football team in college football. So that says a lot, and we're still competitive, with 11,
Sure.
11 of those freshmen out there. But how is he going to be able to develop this next group of kids? I love watching Wilson, number 3, the
Yes.
wide receiver. Bro, he's freaking electric, and he is a really good player. I don't know if he can run routes though, honestly. I'm having, I'm trying to see, like, he can run slants, but is he running comebacks? Not really. They're throwing them, bubbles, and they're throwing them screens, and they're throwing them quick slants. So, like, I want to see him take the next step.
Yeah.
And, what routes can we get better at? And what routes can we run, posts and double moves and be like that guy that he has for sure the potential. And it's guys like Andy Jean, you don't see him much out there. He's played a couple times. And
right.
When he's got the ball, he's done really, really well. But then again, once again, it's not necessarily running routes. It's more of the screens and the short passes and that type of stuff. So those two dudes could be unbelievable, and they have so much talent. So how are they going to get developed? And that's on Billy Gonzalez, and that's on Napier, and then offensive linemen. These D linemen that are coming in, like technical stuff, bro. Like, obviously we got to get a lot better at a lot of these things, and we can't continue to rely on the portal like we are right now. But there's a lot of things, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here. A lot of things that we got to continue to get better at, but I want to see how we develop now. Now that we're getting these recruits.
Dabo Swinney, obviously very much against the transfer portal. I think this year I see a little bit of what he's saying, but it's still become it's almost if you're not doing it, if you're not kind of getting that one piece here and there, you're sort of behind the 8 ball a little bit. Now, I'm not saying his record at 4-4 this year has a portal issue, but nonetheless, there are teams that are out there, and there's fool's gold in the portal. There are some portal players that are good players that have a bad situation, but a lot of them are players that are not performing at a certain level and thinking a change of environment is going to make that happen. Your analogy earlier saying, hey, you can't just turn that ability to be a winner on. You have to know, you have to have that inherently in you. And I think that's what happens with a lot of teams who go too heavy in the portal. It turns out to be not always the success you'd hope it would be.
And you definitely don't get a young, hungry player a lot of times. You get more of like a guy who's kind of stuck in his ways, and you got to try to figure out how he can fit into the puzzle. But I'm excited about these freshman kids. I really am. I think our safety, 14, Castell, is that his last name?
Yeah, Caskell or something.
Man, good. Yeah, great player, man. Really, really good player. He started this whole entire season, for the most part for us. Tackles really well. Let's see his development over these, and that's what is really important about getting to bowl eligible. It's not necessarily the bowl game that we're playing in. It's the weeks of 2 or 3 weeks of practice you get, going into that, and just last little, hoorah, or last little fundamental things you can teach these guys before they go into, off season and then spring ball. And
honestly, looking at it as well, the game against Georgia, I don't know, I guess what Georgia did offensively and defensively wasn't very complicated. Yeah, I wasn't dazzled by the play calling. Okay, I wasn't I didn't go like, wow, look at that play or whatever it was. What I saw was execution. I saw guys that have been in the program for a number of years doing their jobs right, being pushed by their backups. Especially on defense. They rotate guys in and out on defense all the time.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
unbelievable how many rotations they do with these guys. I mean, it's like it looks like a whole team sub, like in and out, a whole 11 sub for the most part. Obviously, it's not, but that's what it looks like out there sometimes.
Yeah, I just got texted before you came on, and somebody said they heard Gary Danielson on the radio saying he had a depth chart of 13 different players that came in on defensive end position, and Damon Wilson wasn't one of them. Damon Wilson played well and got a sack in the game, and he wasn't even on his depth chart as far as what he saw from, and so and that was early in the game. So they can look around and say, you know what? Hey, that guy played. He practiced hard this week. You're in the rotation this week. They're that much. There's that much ability at their program where they can plug guys in, and that are and they could be there 4 deep in some cases.
Well, I mean, it's been the same thing the last 3 or 4 years in the Florida Georgia game. It's just we've just killed. I mean, I remember specifically Anthony Richardson throwing an interception, I think in the second quarter, and then we had the ball to tie it going into halftime, and he throws a pick 6.
Yep.
And it's a 14-point swing. Just absolutely kills you and your momentum playing the number 1 team in the country. And talk about this week, that 4th down. Obviously, I think the go for it is probably should have done it. Go for it. I think that the analytics say go for it. Fine, go for it. None of us had the problem for him going for it. Obviously, it was just the play call stunk, horrible play call. And so, and execution too, as well, obviously. So then you give him a short field, obviously they score. Then the next series they block a punt, and so which ends up I think in a safety, and then we punt it off to them. So I mean, dude, you can't kill ourselves like that.
Yeah, and then that's exactly what happened. You could see then the body language changed. Every turn changed on the field. You could see I'm like, oh, this game's pretty much over because they're now looking at the scoreboard and they were probably thinking to themselves like everybody else. They say, hey, we got to keep it close. We can't get into a 44 to 43 kind of a contest. This is not our makeup at this point, especially against a team like Georgia. And so it's tough to see. It's been that way 3 years in a row where one or two crucial plays early in the game, first, second quarter, where all of a sudden the momentum was gone and Georgia pounced on it quickly. And their quarterback played better than I expected him to. I think he was pretty accurate and he controlled the offense, but he was playing like it was a afternoon in the park for him. Like he had no concern.
He had all day.
Yeah, he was like, whatever, I can do this, and he was good. And that's the thing. I think one of the things as well. I think you are going to get those athletes on the edges and the running backs and all that stuff. But really, it's going to come down to line development on both sides of the ball for Florida. That's always the one thing that's been consistently when they were good in '96 or in your era and everything else. It was O-line is and D-line are just a big part of it.
Yeah, you have to get after it on the O and D line, side of things. I also saw, there were multiple times where we're blitzing, and obviously when you blitz a guy that puts our DBs one-on-one on the outside, but we don't get home. Kind of like what you're saying, the quarterback's sitting back there all day long,
right,
trying to being able to throw the ball. So I mean, we obviously have to figure out a way to get home, especially when we blitz. I mean, obviously it'd be great to go just with 4 down rushers and be able to get home like Georgia's able to do. But whenever we do blitz and we have to blitz, I mean, there's lane integrity. There's a bunch of different things that were screwed up multiple times, that I saw with guys. And that just all comes with learning and how complicated the defensive scheme is and that type of stuff, which, you hope that everything will get figured out, by the end of the year and then going into next year.
Yeah. So, like I said, players have to learn. And obviously, Billy Napier's learning his job as well because it's something that's new, big program, a lot of expectations. Play calls can be, not the right time or whatever. He's going to have to get better at his things as well as the players. But I think they are at that point where it's going to be. I think this is sort of the launching point. We'll see how it ends up going into next year with some of those new players that come in, and we'll see how it rolls. I'd love to see him in a bowl game. That happens.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll be good. One more question. I heard Kirby Smart talk a little bit about the Florida Georgia game and saying, well, this shouldn't be a neutral site. It's not really a neutral site. Blah blah blah. Do you ever think it'll turn into a home and home, or do you even want it to ever be a home and home scenario? Should it always be on a neutral site in Jacksonville?
I don't think it should be in home and home personally. I mean, I look at really the only other rivalries that I can see that are on the same level as Florida, Georgia would be Texas, Oklahoma, and Ohio State, Michigan. Yeah. And I think what makes Texas, Oklahoma so special is that it's played at the State Fairgrounds in Dallas.
And Austin. Austin, I think it is. No, it's Dallas. I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But they're split right down the middle, just like Florida, Georgia. I think just that atmosphere is just so special and unique, and you don't get that. We have 10 other games we can, go home and home with, but I think it just makes it so much more special when it's in Jacksonville, me personally.
Yeah, I think his only problem is he couldn't do recruiting. I couldn't invite recruits to go.
Well, they can now.
They can.
They're allowing it to happen now, yeah.
So now everybody wants to go to that game, and now they get a chance to do that. So that's good. All right, we'll take one more quick break and come back with Trey Burton for a few more minutes after this. Some NFL stuff we want to talk about, just nothing specific, but more like big picture stuff with the NFL. So we'll take another break here from Douglas Jeep, and we'll talk to Trey Burton about a little NFL when we get back here in a few minutes.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
Back here at Douglas Jeep and the 941 Sports Zone with Trey Burton. And Trey, let's go right into the next subject matter, which I think you mentioned you may have some strong opinions on. NFL has had a little bit of an issue, maybe more so because of the Aaron Rodgers injury early in the year with an Achilles injury, and then some other injuries that have happened regarding maybe specific artificial turf. for or against artificial turf? And do you think it's ever going to be feasible where they could actually legislate somehow that they all have to be grass fields? I'll let you have the floor on that one.
Yeah, there's no player at any sport at any level that likes artificial turf. The older you get, the worse it is on your body and the worse it makes you feel. You'll see more guys now that it's getting colder and teams will have to practice indoors that won't practice or will be limited in practice because of how bad it makes their body feel. Specifically their joints, lower back, knees, ankles, shoulders, that type of stuff. And I remember, I'll never forget it. When I first got into the league, Florida didn't have an indoor facility when I was at Florida, so I knew nothing about artificial turf.
Right.
We never really played on it either, I don't think. And so I had no clue about any of that stuff. And then when I got to Philly, they have a turf field as well, obviously because it gets cold as heck over there. And there were veteran guys that were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years in the league that wouldn't practice on Fridays because we were indoors on Fridays, and they just literally couldn't get the swelling and inflammation out of their joints before their game on Sunday. And so it's an absolute disaster. And there's some turf that's better than others. Like, specifically the one that's one of the worst is known in MetLife, where the Jets and the Giants play. I mean, I feel it is so bad. It's so slippery. And then obviously when it gets cold and wet, it's slippery no matter what. And then when it gets cold and wet, it just makes it even 10 times worse. But I will say, on the contrary, there are stadiums like Houston that is grass. That's horrible grass. There's no way for them to get the water and the sun on it enough like you can in Arizona and Vegas, where they have to. And Tottenham has the same thing where they wheel the grass out and then they bring it back in. So it's just it's a catch-22. I totally understand why. Obviously, I mean, I'm not an idiot. I understand why they have turf and the easeability of it and that type of stuff. But nobody would ever. I mean, look at soccer.
Yes.
No one in soccer ever plays on turf.
They won't play
ever.
They said Lionel Messi was a new guy and comes to the United States to play, and people are like, hey, people in New England, you got artificial turf. He doesn't play on artificial turf. Not even a chance he plays on artificial turf. And so that's definite. And when you see that, from what you just said, and when you see athletes that are in their contracts that they don't want it, there's an inherent problem. And I think eventually this is going to come down to maybe a union situation where the NFLPA has to come in and say, hey, we're not going to put up with this. There's going to be some situations we may understand, but if you have the means to do it, it needs to be grass.
No, I agree, and I do think turf has gotten better over the time. Like, I think now they're using coconut shells instead of those little black rubber pellet little things. And those, you fall down one time with that, you have them in your underwear, you have them in your socks, you have them in your armpit, like you have them literally everywhere on your body. In your crease, you have them, and it's miserable to get them out and everything. And I mean, they have come a long way since AstroTurf and all that type of stuff. But if they can make it better, I think the coconut shell is better and it's softer and it's not as hard on your body. But who knows, man? It's bad right now.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't think anything that's artificial can ever be as good as what Mother Nature makes.
Correct.
And that's just the bottom line to it. And you know what? I get that you don't want to have a track that's muddy or slippery, but you know what? Football was played in a lot of football games you watched back in the day. They were playing in mud by the end of the year or in dirt. Not always the safest thing, but again, I think you're right. I think it's a lot better. And the money that's running through the NFL at this point right now, okay, from an owner's perspective, let's just say that to be able to say it's too expensive to maintain a grass field or whatever it may be seems a little bit, it doesn't ring true to everybody. I would say I can understand you're trying to do some things, but that doesn't usually ring true to the fan or the player to say, no, this is not really where we want to be.
But there are, like I said, there are grass fields that are bad. I mean, did you see the field at Florida, Georgia? It looked horrible. Mm-hmm. They barely ever showed the long way on the screen because of how horrible the turf looked. I played in Chicago, where it's obviously harder to grow grass in Chicago or in Green Bay and Minnesota. I mean, obviously that's a no-brainer. But man, like that turf's horrible. The grass is horrible at points of the year just because they got to continue to put new sod in there, and it kind of messes everything up. So. Yeah,
I know, but I think if there's a choice, I think you're saying grass, right? I would think you would think
1,000%, 1,000%,
no doubt. All right, listen, I know you got somewhere to go, but I want to give you your chance now to, if you got what's bugging me, this is your opportunity, the Truly Nolan What's Bugging Me segment right here. If you got one you want to roll out for me.
Yeah, I have a quick one. I mean, I'm an offensive player, and I'm specifically, I guess you can talk about college and professional, but offensive guy, and I totally understand the protection of the non-defensible player and everything like that. But some of these roughing the passer calls that have been called lately, I mean, you're changing games.
Right.
In the games, obviously that stinks, but these guys are getting fined, like big fines, like $30,000-$40,000 fines for pushing the quarterback, because they're having a hard time stopping and those type of things. And I totally understand what they're trying to do and how they're trying to protect the game. But if you're gonna call it on Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, then bro, you got to call it on Geno Smith and everybody else in the league. You can't. And it's hard from a defensive player to decipher, are they going to call this or are they not going to call this? And it's hard to be running full speed and to pull off on something, And I totally understand the safety part of it. And the quarterbacks drive the league, and that's how their revenues continue to grow up every single year because of points scored and good football. 1,000% understand it, but man, some of these are super inconsistent, and I hate seeing these guys get penalized, change games, and then also get fined because people don't realize that you get a personal foul penalty in the NFL,
right?
You're getting fined, and it obviously depends on what offense this is. If it's your fifth time getting fined or getting a penalty, then obviously you're gonna have to pay a lot more money, and those type of things and that type of stuff. But I don't really like it, and I think it's kind of making the game a little softer, in my opinion. And I'm not talking about the safeties hitting the guys, and I'm not talking about that. I'm just specifically talking about the quarterbacks
and things like certain things like a guy falls into the quarterback or he's trying to block the pass and he comes down with his hands and it grazes the front of his face mask or something along those lines that just they're really in the play moments that really don't require a unsportsmanlike or personal foul penalty to be called because you're a step away from being where you would even sometimes with sacks you sack a guy and then you put your body weight on top of him. What am I supposed to do? I mean, it's kind of silly. So I totally agree with what you're saying there. That has become a little bit over the top with those calls. So all right,
maybe we have like a 5-yard penalty replay of down instead of an automatic first down and a fine.
And you know what? And that's exactly what cooler heads or people that in the rules committee should really be thinking about. Is there something you can do so it's not catastrophic to the team or catastrophic to somebody's wallet for the weekend.
Yes, yes, for sure. No question.
No doubt. All right, Trey, thank you for being here. And I really do appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in maybe a couple of weeks down the road with the Venice High School live stream again. You can be on
next
my
week.
partner.
Are we going to have a bye week first round?
No,
we're going to
roll
roll right
into it. Right into it. So
perfect.
So we'll be
see you next Friday.
Perfect. All right, Trey, thank you for being here, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Always a good time, bro. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. And again, that was Trey Burton on this line for SportsZone. I'm going to take a quick break, come back with my What's Bugging Me, and wrap up the show for tonight after these messages.
What does Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram and Venice High football have in common?
The perfect team and the perfect lineup.
Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram will always go the extra yard, so you can score big with the area's best selection and savings. So if you're looking for a championship vehicle lineup
and a dealership that tackles the competition,
visit Douglas Jeep Chrysler Dodge Ram in Venice.
And if you're looking for a championship football lineup, check out the Venice High football team.
Who supports Venice High football? Douglas does.
And we're back here at Douglas Jeep for the 941 Sports Zone. And I'm here by myself. And I get my chance now after Trey was here with us. And again, we thank Trey Burton for being here with us tonight. Get my chance to tell you what's bugging me. And I've been hearing a lot lately in football mostly, a lot of the word parity. There's parity in the NFL. There's parity in college football now. There's no dominant teams. And parity makes it sound like everybody's sort of playing with the same deck. Like everybody's kind of just getting the same players and the same everything else, and it's all equal to everybody. Everybody's equal. And I don't know if it's really parity in a lot of cases. In the NFL, I understand that there's a salary cap that sort of keeps the product in line so that everybody has the same amount of money to play with, and there's create a sort of an equal playing field regarding that. But ultimately, I think a lot of times it's not so much parity, but I think it's inconsistencies. I think people are looking at the game and saying, "Oh, but anybody can beat anybody in every Sunday." I think that is true, or in the NFL's perspective. But I don't think that it's a parity situation. I think there's inconsistencies. I think teams are not playing consistent. I don't know if it's because maybe practice time is down. I'm not sure if it's has to do with a smaller time in the summer now. They don't practice the amount of times they normally did before. I don't know what it is, but I see a lot of inconsistencies. I see players go out one week and they're out there and they're, say, a quarterback in particular. I won't even name names, but just any quarterback, and he goes out and he looks like he's a world beater. He's 22 out of 38. He's got 4 touchdowns, whatever it may be. And then you watch the next game and you say to yourself, well, what happened to that guy? Now he's not playing very well. It could be the other team, but I think a lot of times there's a lot of inconsistency to the play on the field. And I just don't know where exactly those inconsistencies are coming from. Really good teams, perennial winners, are not inconsistent. Their level of play may dip some against other teams, and obviously other teams have a lot to do with that. It doesn't come to these big highs and lows where you play massively well one week and then all of a sudden you do nothing the next. Do I think injuries are a part of it as well? Yes. But again, injuries don't necessarily lend itself to parity. Parity means that everybody's sort of the same and they all should be playing each other, and everybody's got the equal amount of guys with the equal amount of talent. And I'm not sure that's the case. I think sometimes it is something that it's more of an inconsistency situation and not a parity situation. And it kind of bugs me for the fact that people are sort of looking at the game and saying that it's that somehow we're all going to be 8-8 or 8-9 now in the NFL or whatever it may be, or 6-6 in college football, and that's where we're headed. I don't think so. I think really good teams, I think great coaching, I think great players will find their way through their inconsistencies to be great. And there won't be parity because of that, because there are teams that will figure out, or players that will figure out how to get over their inconsistencies. And that is what's bugging me tonight. My prediction is something also kind of topically in the news. There's a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh up at Michigan, and regarding the fact that he has done some sign stealing, elaborately doing some sign stealing with some staffers or members of the Michigan family going to games and videotaping the games and then going back and deciphering the signals that the other teams are using, and actually having these guys who were at the games standing next to coaches and actually being a part of the think tank on the sidelines for the Michigan Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh has done some other things that have sort of been silly violations, things that seem like immature kind of things, and he has been a guy who likes to sort of stir things up. I think my prediction is I think that Jim Harbaugh, with all that being the case and all these little problems and things that are sort of getting under his skin a little bit, will not be the Michigan coach next year. I think either win or lose or whatever happens with Michigan this year, I think this is his last year at Michigan, and I think he's going to parlay his recent success at Michigan back into an NFL job if he can. But I do not think that Jim Harbaugh will be the coach at Michigan next year, and we'll see if that plays out for in the next few months. Michigan being 8-0, you wouldn't think that'd be the case, but this is the kind of thing that I think he's becoming frustrated with it, and I think the administration is frustrated with his sort of having to make excuses for him as well. And with that, we'll tell you that we are done tonight on the 941 Sports Zone. My biggest thanks again to Greg Douglas and the Douglas Jeep family. Just saw Greg a minute ago, and he were talking about his aptitude at coin tossing. He was the official captain for the Venice Indians at the game on Friday night, and Greg got to toss the coin before the game. So thanks to him for being there, and thanks for him to doing all the stuff he does for us here at 941 Sports Zone. And I thank you guys for watching. For Francis Haynes, my producer, do-all guy sitting behind the camera, for Trey Burton, and for all you guys watching out there, I do appreciate it. We'll see you next time here on the 941 Sports Zone.